When my friend Noah suggested we spend one last weekend camping before summer ended, it sounded like a good idea at the time. The plan was simple. Me, Noah, his girlfriend Kayla, and my cousin Ethan would drive out to an isolated area deep in the Daniel Boone National Forest and stay 2 nights near an old creek. Noah had been there once before with his uncle and kept talking about how remote it was. No phone service, no other campers, just woods for miles. That should have been the first red flag. We got there late in the afternoon and the place honestly looked perfect. Thick trees surrounded the clearing, and there was an old stone fire pit already there, like someone had camped recently. Ethan joked that it looked like the setup for a horror movie, but we laughed it off. The first few hours were normal. We cooked hot dogs, listened to music, and sat around the fire talking about stupid high school memories. Around midnight, Kayla mentioned hearing footsteps in the woods behind our tents. Noah said it was probably deer, but then we heard it too. Slow footsteps. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Not running, not wandering. Walking in a circle around our campsite. Every time one of us pointed a flashlight toward the trees, the sound stopped completely. The second we looked away, it started again. Ethan yelled out, asking if somebody was there. No answer. Around 2 a.m., the fire suddenly died low, and the woods became dead silent. No crickets, no frogs, nothing. That's when we heard Kayla scream. She was pointing toward the trees across the creek. At first I couldn't see anything, but then the flashlight caught it. Someone was standing between the trees watching us. Tall, thin, completely motionless. Noah shouted at whoever it was, but the person didn't react, didn't move, didn't even blink from what I could tell. Then, in a voice that sounded almost human, it said, "Can I sit by the fire?" I still get chills thinking about it because the voice sounded wrong somehow. Like somebody trying to copy the way people talk after only hearing it once. Noah grabbed the truck keys and told everyone to get inside. But as we started throwing things together, the figure slowly stepped closer to the creek. Then another figure appeared farther back at the woods. Then another. We left almost everything behind and ran for the truck. While Ethan was reversing out, I looked back one last time and saw 3 tall silhouettes standing around our fire pit, perfectly still, watching us leave. The creepiest part happened the next morning. Noah realized he'd left his expensive camping gear behind, so he drove back after sunrise thinking maybe we'd overreacted. The campsite was empty, no footprints, no people. But every single chair we'd left behind was now placed in a perfect circle around the cold fire pit. Like something had been sitting there after we left. Back in the summer of 2021, my best friend Lucas became obsessed with abandoned places. Every weekend, he'd drag me somewhere creepy to film videos for his tiny YouTube channel. Usually it was old barns or empty factories, nothing serious. But one night, he told me he'd found an abandoned farmhouse an hour outside town that locals supposedly avoided. That should have been enough for me to stay home. It was me, Lucas, and his younger brother Mason. Lucas explained that the house sat at the end of Ash Creek Road and had been abandoned since the early 90s after an entire family supposedly vanished there. Of course, Mason thought it sounded awesome. We arrived just before dark, and the place looked horrifying. The house leaned slightly to one side, windows broken out, weeds taller than the porch. What really bothered me was how isolated it was. No nearby houses, no lights anywhere, just woods. The second we stepped inside, the smell hit us. Mold mixed with something rotten. Lucas was excited, recording everything while Mason explored upstairs. I stayed near the kitchen because the whole place felt wrong. It was too quiet. Then we heard Mason running. Not walking. Running. He came downstairs pale as a ghost and asked if we were messing with him. We weren't. He said he'd been exploring one of the bedrooms when he heard someone whisper directly behind him, "Don't look under the bed." Lucas thought he was joking until we all heard a loud thump upstairs. Then another. Heavy footsteps moved across the second floor directly above us. Slow. Deliberate. Lucas called out, thinking maybe another group had shown up, but the footsteps stopped instantly. That silence lasted maybe 10 seconds before every upstairs door slammed shut at the same time. Mason started crying and ran for the front door, but it wouldn't open. It genuinely felt like someone was holding it shut from the other side. That's when Lucas pointed his flashlight toward the staircase. There was a man standing at the top. At least, I think it was a man. He was extremely tall, almost bending sideways because of the ceiling, and his face looked unnaturally pale. The worst part was his smile. It stretched way too wide across his face. None of us moved. Then he spoke. "You weren't supposed to come back." Lucas finally got the door open and we sprinted to the car. As we peeled away down the dirt road, I looked back toward the upstairs window. The figure was still there watching us, smiling. A few weeks later, Lucas uploaded the footage online. Most of it was too dark to see anything. But right before we ran out of the house, the camera caught something standing behind me in the kitchen doorway. It wasn't there when we were filming. My name's Brandon, and this happened last summer, about 8 months after I broke up with my ex-girlfriend, Alyssa. At first, Alyssa and I had a normal relationship. But after almost 2 years together, things started getting controlling. She constantly accused me of cheating, got angry if I didn't answer texts immediately, and even showed up at my job unannounced just to check if I was really there. The breakup got ugly fast. She begged me not to leave, then switched to threatening me, saying nobody would ever love me the way she did. After a few months, things finally went quiet. Then I started dating Haley. Haley was the complete opposite. Easygoing, funny, and honestly the healthiest relationship I'd ever had. We'd only been together about 3 months when we decided to spend a weekend at Lake Cumberland with 2 friends of ours, Trevor and Mia. Trevor had rented a small cabin near the water, and the whole plan was just boating, swimming, and relaxing before summer ended. The first weird thing happened at a gas station halfway there. Haley casually asked me if I knew the girl parked across from us in a black SUV because she kept staring at us. I looked over and immediately felt sick. It was Alyssa. The second she realized I recognized her, she pulled out of the station fast enough to squeal her tires. I tried convincing myself it was coincidence. But about 40 minutes later, Trevor pointed out the same black SUV, several cars behind us on the highway. That's when I started getting nervous. When we finally reached the cabin, the SUV disappeared, and I started relaxing again. We spent the afternoon on the lake, grilled food outside, and stayed up talking around a fire pit. Around midnight, Mia noticed something strange down near the shoreline. A flashlight. somebody was standing near the dock, shining a light toward the cabin. Trevor yelled down, asking who it was, but the person immediately switched the flashlight off. The next morning, things got worse. Haley opened the cabin door and found wet footprints across the porch. Sitting beside the welcome mat was a photo of me and Alyssa from years earlier. On the back, written in black marker, were the words, "You replaced me too fast." Haley wanted to call the police immediately, but I stupidly thought confronting Alyssa myself would end it. I texted her telling her to stop following us or I'd involve law enforcement. She replied almost instantly, "I just want to talk." An hour later, we rented a pontoon boat and tried salvaging the day. But while we were out on the lake, Trevor suddenly pointed toward the marina. The black SUV was parked near the boat ramp, and Alyssa was standing beside it, watching us through binoculars. That finally pushed me over the edge. We headed back immediately, and Trevor called the police while we packed our stuff at the cabin. About 20 minutes later, a sheriff's deputy arrived. At first, Alyssa denied everything, until the deputy searched her SUV. Inside were printed photos of me and Haley together, copies of my social media posts, and pages of handwritten notes about where we'd been going for weeks. She even had the address of Haley's apartment written in a notebook. The creepiest part? They also found a spare key to my truck that had gone missing months earlier. Alyssa was arrested that night for stalking and harassment. Apparently, this wasn't even the first time she'd done something like this to an ex. Haley and I stayed together, but even now, every time I notice the same car behind me for too long, my stomach drops. Because for almost an entire weekend, my ex wasn't just watching us, she was planning something.